Hello, and welcome to the SharePoint Framework and JavaScript Special Interest Group Biweekly Sync. It is October 25th, 2018, almost Halloween for folks in the States and other places that might celebrate a similar holiday. But today on the call, we always like to start off with what these calls are about and why we do them. So these calls are part of the larger SharePoint Patterns and Practices program, and they were started because we just didn't have enough bandwidth in the single monthly call to cover all the areas and topics we wanted to call. So we started the special interest groups. This was the first, and we have a second call. They alternate Thursdays. This one is focused around SharePoint Framework and the client-side development patterns associated with that, the PnP JS libraries, the Office 365 CLI, the SPFx reusable controls, and soon we'll be adding in some great work that Stefan has been doing on the SPFx. Oh, what are we exactly calling that? The extended Yeoman generator for SPFx that takes the out-of-the-box one and extends the capabilities of that. So we're going to have that on, I believe, the next call or the call after that. We'll have a great introduction on that and get folks started on that, but you can check that out for sure. It is already available. Two links down there at the bottom, aka MS-SPPnP-community, will take you to the Microsoft Tech community in the SharePoint section of the Microsoft Tech community. Great place to ask general questions, how do I design my solution, things like that that don't necessarily pertain to a particular library. That's a great place to ask those kind of questions. And the bottom link there, spdev-docs, takes you to all of the SharePoint developer documentation all up. And that documentation is for if you're new to SharePoint Framework and want to get started with that. That'll have all the documentation around getting started, the examples, the tutorials, the walkthroughs, how to deploy your solutions, those types of things will all be there. But as well, you'll find the documentation for sandbox solutions as well as managed code WSP solutions is all moving to that location. So that will be all of the SharePoint developer documentation all up will be at that link. And I'm going to go ahead and move to the next slide. So our agenda for this week's call, engineering update from SharePoint Framework, the patterns and practices updates. We've got the PnP client-side libraries, Office 365 CLI, and SPFx reusable controls. And then I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it over and over. Then we've got two great demos. The first from Vipul, the SPFx extension to display dynamically metadata of a site page. And then Simon has a great demo on SharePoint Framework list view custom actions. Give me 1 second. I think somebody's not muted.
Should be
nope.
fine now.
Just my imagination. Has a great demo on a SharePoint Framework list view custom action, which is going to be really cool, and it happens to use PnP JS, which is always neat to see those kind of solutions come through. And then we might have a little time at the end for Q&A. So moving in, just to keep things going along, as always, want to talk about opportunities to participate. So if you're looking for ways to get more involved in patterns and practices, or this call specifically and the JavaScript special interest group, the best way to do that, or my favorite way for folks to do that, is do a demo. So demo some of the great work you're doing out there for your customers or your company. That could be a SharePoint Framework solution. That could be something involving any of the PnP JS libraries. It could be both of those things. PnP JS in SPFx is always a great demo. But as well, anything client-side development and SharePoint related. So even if it's not necessarily in SharePoint Framework or using PnP JS, those can still be great demos as well to see how folks are solving real-world problems that they have been assigned or that they're working on for their companies. Really great to see the demos, really value those community demos. So if you'd like to do a demo, please just reach out to myself or Vesa. Twitter is a great way to get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to get you on the agenda. We might not be able to get you on the agenda for, for example, immediately the next call, but we'll definitely get you on the agenda and lock you in a spot so we can get your demo, and love to have those demos from folks. Furthermore, you can contribute on GitHub. Those contributions can come in a number of forms. Those come in as you can report issues that you find or ideas for enhancements with the library. I've said it before, I don't love seeing lots of issues, but I do love getting that feedback so we can get the issues fixed and improve things for everybody as well. I know I and everybody else working across the PnP projects loves to see your ideas as well for enhancements. And then, of course, all our projects, we very much absolutely welcome pull requests to any of the work we're doing. So if you have an idea for a contribution, definitely love to see a pull request for that. Love to see that kind of a contribution back to the community. And I do say, if you do have an idea for kind of a large pull request that might be considerable amounts of work for you and large changes to any of the libraries, just reach out to the people managing that library first. Just post an issue, talk about your idea. It's not that we don't want it, it's that we'd love to talk about it and avoid the situation where you maybe do a whole lot of work that for whatever reason we can't merge. So, but we absolutely welcome those ideas and absolutely welcome all of the pull requests we get. It's really great to see the participation of the community helping to build and improve all the various libraries. And then finally, you can always just provide feedback. So feedback not even necessarily on the libraries, but on these calls, on our samples, on our documentation. Everything always has a little bit of room to improve. So having that feedback and knowing where we can improve and where that value can lie is always very valuable. And I do like to mention we can't always act on every piece of feedback immediately. So don't be disheartened if you don't see immediate change. But we do take all that to heart. We definitely take those back and discuss them in the core team. So that feedback is very valued, and we appreciate it from everyone and anyone who cares to give it to us. We do like when it's constructive feedback, but we appreciate all feedback, and we are always working to make things better for everybody. With that, I will hand things over to Vesa for our SharePoint framework update.
And there we go. Let me. Yeah, I'm here. I'm going to just unmute myself. So a few slides because we want to make sure that we have plenty of time for the demos and Q&A in the end as well. But few things, just a small updates on the SharePoint framework. So just the reminders. If you're looking into and reporting or getting a support for any potential developer-oriented bugs, please go to the first check out our documentation. So go to the AKMS SPDev docs, and this is the location where you find videos, samples, training materials, and everything else. There's a references to YouTube videos and everything else, so you can actually learn how to do development. We had 884,000 views in September. We are actually looking into increasing that in October, which is good. And we have other plans on increasing the content here as well. As an example, all of the new SharePoint Framework 1.7 content, which we're currently writing, will be obviously here on the day when 1.7 goes out. Now, the second thing, there was already questions on the IAM window. Where can I ask help around bugs, what I'm having? Now, go always first to the AKMS SPDev issue list. Don't send email to me. Don't try to ping me on Skype or whatever channel, because I don't scale. That's just the realities of life. And that's why we have the issue list. We have countless of people actually taking care of this issue list, and community can help with the issue list as well. So that if there's a question related on, hey, what would be the best way of achieving something, so not a bug within the service, people can actually help other people in this issue list as well. But it's also there for you to report any actual developer-oriented API issues, or let's say a SharePoint framework doesn't behave properly, which is a good example on what Christian was referencing on something which is actually super old from March. So Christian, in your case, I think it's a misconfiguration somewhere. We'll have a look on that one. Now, but anyway, so if you have a developer-oriented issue, go and open up an issue list issue here. We'll get on that as soon as possible. If your bug is related on out-of-the-box functionalities, we can't help you through the SharePoint Dev issue list. So we're asking you to go to the tenant admin in your tenant and then open up a SharePoint Online support ticket. So if it's something like, hey, out-of-the-box web part or out-of-the-box lists are behaving weirdly, you would have to report that using the standard support channel. The issue list is only for developer-oriented topics, so we are unallowed to start addressing any other topics here. Now, moving on things. So one reminder, actually, this is mainly for MVPs because we didn't get that many submissions. So if you're interested in getting additional visibility for your writings or your blog posts, cool stuff, you're considering to write something related on SharePoint framework or farm solutions even, or a sandbox solution, as long as it's an interesting topic, you're able to submit that to be also potentially available to get released from the official SharePoint developer blog. So we're opening up this one, and we got 2 submissions, which we actually, and we do apologize, we haven't actually come back on those. That was with Warthaman and Sergey, if I remember correctly. We'll follow up on those relatively fast as well. But if you're an MVP, please take advantage of this opportunity. We'll promote you as an MVP. We'll give you additional visibility on what you're doing using the official SharePoint Twitter tags and Office Dev tags. So that should be, let's say, valuable for you as well. Now, on other things, what I wanted to quickly show, the classic slides, is the usage adaptation of SharePoint Framework, and I actually added some additional details here as well. So if you're wondering on, hey, the SharePoint Framework seems to be pretty complex if you haven't really learned how to do that, and is it worthwhile to actually do that? The answer is actually yes. So we're already seeing a massive uptake across thousands and tens of thousands of customers on the SharePoint Framework usage, a custom SharePoint Framework usage in SharePoint Online. First of all, SharePoint Framework is the same technology what we use in SharePoint Engineering to build all of the modern capabilities. So it's 100% reliable model. It's not going to go away because we actually built SharePoint Framework and SharePoint Online using SharePoint Framework. So we can't actually stop using and supporting that. But on the third-party usage, custom SharePoint Framework experiences, these are the charts which are showing you the adaptation from September 2017 until October. Well, actually yesterday's chart is there as well. So there's 3 dots from this week on the chart. And what's really interesting here is that the growth from January this year on the usage of custom SPFx has grown more than 350%. And already at January this year, SharePoint Framework was used more than SharePoint add-ins. That gives you a perspective on how much these are being used. Also, the year-over-year growth, if we compare today to a year ago, so 25th of October 2017, we grew adoption by 513%. And already a year ago, at this moment, SharePoint Framework was used more than SharePoint add-ins in SharePoint Online. So if you're kind of wondering on, should I do my customization using add-in model or using SharePoint Framework, the answer should be pretty obvious. So and right now, as per start from SharePoint Framework 1.7, so let me move forward, you're able to then start writing your Microsoft Teams tabs using a web part. Technically, what it means is that any web part which has been implemented using SharePoint Framework can be also surfaced as such without any modifications as a Microsoft Teams tab. So your customers can choose to use your customization either in the SharePoint Online pages or as a tab within the Microsoft Teams. So starting from 1.7, which is coming out relatively soon. So officially we are saying ETA by end of this year. Right now we're looking into getting the 1.7 out. How would I put it? How would I put it in the way that I'm not actually promising anything? Let's put it this way. It doesn't make any sense to release anything new just before Christmas, right? Because everybody goes to holiday. US has Thanksgiving on the end of November, and it doesn't make any sense to release anything after Thanksgiving because people are already getting into the Christmas mode and mood, so they're not really willing to take and learn something else. So that means that we need to release stuff before Thanksgiving. And also it doesn't make any sense to release the new functionality just before Thanksgiving because then we lose the momentum on the new capabilities. So now you can figure out that it's a matter of days or weeks to get 1.7 out rather than by end of this year. So stuff is coming out relatively soon. As part of 1.7 dynamic data, it goes to general availability. SharePoint 2019 support will be natively in Yeoman. So the Yeoman, when you execute the Yeoman, it will ask you, are you targeting SharePoint Online, SharePoint 2016 forward, or SharePoint 2019 forward? So you can actually then choose which one do you want to use. There's also some additional switches on the Yeoman template, like do you want to isolate your web part, which is a cool automated functionality. So if your web part, if you don't want that web part to be executed on the context of the page, you can just say as part of the Yeoman common execution that, hey, I want to isolate this web part, and poof, it will be executed in an iframe automatically, and you don't have to worry about anything else from a implementation perspective. List subscriptions means that you're able to subscribe to events from a list, SPFx components in Teams. We kind of talked about that one. Supporting provider-hosted solutions means that the Teams solutions can be actually surfaced in the SharePoint Online side. Basically, having a manifest package, a zip file which is targeted for SharePoint Teams, you're able to add those to the app catalog of SharePoint site, your SharePoint tenant, and voila, you can actually use those customizations also on SharePoint site. So we're aligning completely the development model together with Microsoft Teams, which is a super cool functionality. And then app pages, talk about that one when we're getting out the 1.7 release. Right now we're working on updated documentation and for, let's say, fine-tuning and polishing the preview capabilities before we can push this out. But it is getting pretty close, and it's super exciting capabilities, so we're looking forward of your input in here. Cool. There was a lot of discussions on the IO window. I will have to come back on that one after giving the stage for Patrick to go update its situation on the PMPjs. I'll see if there was some questions which I didn't answer and answer those on the IO window. But Patrick, take it away.
Great. So some quick updates here before we get to the demos. So on the PnPjs libraries, we've done some Halloween colors here on the slide, which I think only serve to make it harder to read. But first, I want to start off by saying thank you for all the contributions we're getting from folks. There's been a big uptake in folks submitting PRs for the PnPjs library, and that's really awesome to see. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you that have done that, and would invite certainly others to do so as well. But it's really great to see that. It really helps grow the library in a way that I don't necessarily, or the other core team members don't necessarily have 100% of our time to do all the work that maybe could get done. So the contributions really make a valuable difference. And I want to say thank you to all of you for those contributions. Also wanted to mention, in listening to the feedback and keeping with our idea of listening to feedback, a lot of folks are reporting having trouble with IE11 after some of our recent changes. And initially, I took a little bit of a harder stance and then decided, heard enough feedback that we needed to do something to help. So there's a new package at PnP/Polyfill-IE11, and as well the Polyfill documentation article is updated. And what that package does for you is roll up all of the required polyfills to make IE11 work. And I've tested that in SPFx and outside of SPFx, and that seems to be working. So if you need to support IE11, please try that out. Please check out the Polyfill article. If you see issues with that, of course, let us know. But hopefully that will be a big help for folks that still need to support IE11. So lots of new capabilities are being added. Check out the changelog under the unreleased section, and that is obviously all the stuff that's unreleased at this point, but is generally part of the weekly beta releases. And a lot of those new capabilities, like I said, are coming from pull requests from folks out there in the community. So again, really exciting to see that, and would very much invite others to contribute if you're interested in doing so. But it's great to see that. It really helps us grow the library and improve the library month over month. So thank you again, but do check out, got a lot of great stuff getting added. And then just a note to let folks who are contributing know I'm working on more build improvements, and some of the stuff I did to use the new TypeScript project references capability ended up breaking the ability to go to definition and IntelliSense within the project. So when you're working within the PnPjs library developing it, that's obviously suboptimal. So working on fixing that. I've got that mostly all fixed now, and then as well working on simplifying a lot of the configuration around rollup and some other things. 2 links down there at the bottom, or 1 link down there at the bottom. Gosh, I'm so used to saying 2 links down there at the bottom from the other slide. pnp.github.io/PnPjs is all the documentation for the PnPjs libraries. You can follow the hashtag PnPjs on Twitter. You can also follow me at MediocreBowler. I don't post a ton of spam. It'll mostly just be updates about PnPjs and related things. So stepping in now, updates on the Office 365 CLI. So we've got a new version out, 1.7.0, with commands for adding channels to Microsoft Teams, enabling site classification, managing taxonomy, updating tenant settings, and more. You can always see the release logs or the change log for this library. As well, in progress, the cross-platform PnP starter kit setup script, as well as more commands. If you're looking as well for a place to get involved and do some contributions, the Office 365 CLI is a great place to get started as well. All the commands are atomic, so you can work on a single command without necessarily having to dive deep into every facet of how the CLI works. So a great place to get involved as well. npm install-g for the PnP Office 365 CLI will get you the latest version of that. You can find more information at that AKA link, and then you can follow the hashtag Office 365 CLI on Twitter. And as well, there is a Gitter channel for the CLI, which is a great place to ask questions and talk to other folks in the community around the CLI. And if you haven't tried that, definitely check that out. It's very handy, especially if you don't have access to use PowerShell. It brings a lot of that same capability into a cross-platform library or a CLI interface. So really, really useful, really helpful, and a great place to get involved. Another great place to get involved are the reusable controls. So we have two types or two flavors of reusable controls. The first is the property controls. So these are controls that would be helpful when you're writing your property panes for your SPFx web parts. So for example, when you go hit edit, you get the property pane over on the side. These controls really help out there, help you pick things like taxonomy terms and so forth. Color picker, I believe, is one of them. Bunch of neat stuff there. And then we have another set of controls that is more for the content or body of the web part to help you lay out and format your UI for users to interact with. Both of those packages, both of those sets of controls are styled with the Office UI fabric, so they're going to blend in and give you a great out-of-the-box look for your SPFx web parts. And they're really useful, really save you a lot of time. So if you're building SPFx web parts, SPFx application customizers, check these out. Really save you a lot of time, a lot of great reusable functionality there, as well a great place to contribute if you want to get involved. Some of the recent updates, working on optimizations for bundle size, working on better error message handling, and as well accessibility improvements around using the controls. So great stuff coming. And if you have ideas, of course, welcome your input and contributions here as well. Two links down at the bottom to the controls. The first to the property controls. The second to the body controls or the UI controls. And I guess I should mention these are React-based controls. So if you're in React, these are going to be really helpful for you. If you're not in React, well, very much less so in that case. Now, all set for the demos. I think, Vipul, you're up first. If you're ready to go.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir, we sure can.
Okay, so I'll share my screen with you. Is it visible?
Not quite yet. Loading now on my side.
Let me know when you see it.
And I've got it.
Okay, good. So hello everyone, good evening from India. I do not have too many slides to show, so just the next one and I'll jump straight into the demo. So my name is Vipul. I work for Rapid Circle India and primarily focus on SharePoint, Office 365 services, and I sometimes dabble into the sea of Azure. So I'm going to demo a SPFx application customizer extension for site page core metadata. And I'll just jump into the purpose of this extension. So a couple of months ago, the support for page metadata properties was announced. So with that, we could easily create a content type with our custom property fields by inheriting the site page content type and have metadata properties on the site pages library. And we also got the ability to edit those metadata properties from within the within the modern page itself. And also with that came a web part called page properties, which we could use to display those property values on the page itself. But there was a limitation with the page properties. I'm not sure if that would be something that would be released in the future. But at the moment, it only supports displaying the title field from of the site page and the custom metadata fields that we have created. So it doesn't support displaying the author or the editor or created or modified dates of the particular site page. So I've built this SPFx extension to show this this data on the site page itself. So I'll straight away jump into the demo. I've got a demo site, and on the site pages library, I've created a custom content type called news article, on which I have two custom fields. One is called office location, which is a multi-select taxonomy field, and I've got a field called topic, which is a multi-select choice field. And on this demo site, I've got a demo page, quite creative, but as you see, these two properties have values. So I've got office location and I've got topic. Now I'll go straight into this page and say edit this page. So if I go to the page details, I can change the values of these properties. So say I put in the office location as Oslo, and I select another topic and save this. Now if I want to display these property values on the page, I would use the page properties web part and simply add the properties. So for instance, I want to show the office location that are selected for the page, and I want to show the topic as well. But as you see, I cannot add the author or the editor of the page, and most of the customers, when creating news articles, would want this functionality. So they would want to show who created the page and who has last modified it, and when was it last modified. So what we have here is an SPFx extension. I'll go into the code at the end of the demo. For now, I'll just do a gulp serve. And when this loads, I'll append the URL, load the debug scripts, and there you go. So what this extension does is simply pulls out the values of the author field, the editor field, and created and modified by for this particular item called demo page.spx, and displays it as the application customizer footer. So this can be helpful for showing the author and editor for a scenario like news articles very easily. So I'll jump into the code. What we've done here is on init of the application customizer, we have fetched the URL, the server relative URL of the site pages library, and we have compared it with the server relative URL of the list that the extension is put on. So what will happen is when the application customizer loads, it will fetch the list server relative URL from the page context itself. And if these are same, then we load our application customizer extension, because what we want to do is not load this on every page. We just want to load it on our modern site pages. So that is why we have put the check. Now once this criteria is satisfied, the extension starts to load, and in the render placeholders method, we have created a React element to render the application customizer. Along with it, we are passing a couple of properties for us to fetch, to be able to fetch the data from the list item. So we are passing in the item ID of our site page, which can be easily fetched from the context of the extension. We are also passing in the SPHTTP client, which will need to issue a REST API call to the item, site page item. We are passing in the current site URL, and we are also passing in the site pages list ID. And as you see, these are easily available from the context itself, so we didn't have to pass in any custom properties to our extension. And this is called the React DOM render method to render our application customizer. In the React component itself, we have created a state for the 4 fields that we want to display, and we've initialized the state. And in the render method, we've got the HTML to display what we want to show on the application customizer. So in the component did mount method, what we are doing is calling a custom method to fetch the metadata that we want to display. I'm sorry for that. On the page. So what we do is create a request URL, and based on the properties that we have passed, like the site pages list ID, the site page item ID, and also the properties that we want to fetch, we issue a REST API. And once we have all the data, we format it as we want. So we've got modified date and created date. We've also got the author and the editor of the page, and we return this data. In the component did mount method, we have set the state of all these 4 fields, the values that we have just fetched, and in the render method, it renders all the 4 values that we want, and that's the result. So you can easily modify the CSS to your liking. And there's also one point I would like to mention. So by default, SharePoint sites have a feedback link here on the right bottom corner. So I've used Stefan Bauer's blog to hide it using CSS. So I've also included the class to hide that feedback link in the SCSS module. So if you try out this this application customizer extension for your functionality, this is already there. And yes, that's my demo. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank everyone associated with the PnP initiatives. I use it every day, and big thank you to everyone who's involved in maintaining these projects and also growing it. Over to you, Patrick.
Well, thank you very much. A great demo. Appreciate your kind words. But fantastic stuff. Always interesting to see. If there's a link where that's posted, it'd be great if we could get that, so we can include that in the notes. Maybe we already have that. Just want to make sure we can get you the right visibility for that. Awesome stuff. And now I believe Simon, you're up. If you're ready to take over.
Yeah, I think so. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Sorry, can you hear me now, guys?
Yes, we can, yes.
Yeah, of course. Nice. Let's see now. I'm hopeless. Here we have share content, share my desktop. And let's do the monitor 2 here. Share it. Where is it? There it is.
All these people with multiple monitors.
Yeah, you know, actually, I'm on Surface Hub right now. It's super cool, but I never used it. That feels so Microsofty, whatever you want to call it.
Patrick always complains on me. I'm always saying the same thing. I have 4 screens on my computer, so I don't know which one am I sharing. So.
Okay.
Anyway.
I don't know how y'all get anything done. Anyway, take it away.
Okay, can you see my screen right now?
Yep. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Simon.
Okay, nice. Okay, so, of course, my name is Simon Ågren, or Ågren, whatever you want to call me. I'm Swedish, so we have strange letters. And I'm a SharePoint and Office 365 consultant at Society in Sweden, northern Sweden, Umeå. It actually just started snowing today, so I'm not so excited about it, but anyways. And as Patrick said earlier, I'm going to show list custom action, how to multi-share stuff. And I just want to say I don't think it's that applicable, maybe. I just want to show how you can do stuff and not the cleanest code ever. But anyways, so these are my social media thingies if you want to reach out to me. And just the things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a demo in the UI as always, and just some demo of the code, and just a few things that popped up that I think I'm going to talk about. Just a quickly async load of a component, the main component, React components in general, PnP JS for fetching the users and sharing files and folders. And I just for demo purposes, I made a field customizer just to display the user permissions and just out-of-the-box localization using strings. That's all. Let's see if we can get something shown here. So let's see. Okay, so here I'm logged in as another user. I call it the PnP user. So I'm just going to show you here. We just update, and then the field customizer here shows us that he only has read permissions. Fair enough. And we go to the other browser, and I just update this. And now I'm serving. So we need to load this. And if I choose more than one, this will be displayed here, multi-share. So we could just press this and just briefly, add the PnP user here. Let's give him edit rights, permissions, I mean. We share it. Normally this closes after 3 seconds, but I removed it just for demo purposes. So, okay, fair enough. Let's go to the other one here. So now he has edit permissions there. Fair enough. Let's go into the code, and I'm going to show you some other stuff in the UI later. So I don't know how familiar with this, so it maybe could be repetitive. But anyways, this is the manifest, and I have made a share command, named it share. Default is multi-share, and I'm using a base 64 encoded icon. And here is the command set TypeScript file then. So I'm setting up the SP context here for the SP PnPjs, and you have the documentation on the site. And on this onList view updated, this is where we try to get the command. So we try to get the command share that I recently showed you. And if we have it, let's make it visible if the selected rows are more than one. And this is up to you, if you want to have more than one or less than 5 or whatever, that's up to you. And then in the onExecute, just to make sure we have the share, we have this switch case. And the selected rows, I just put it in a constant here, event selected rows. And then I asynchronously import this component. So just when the user press the multi-share button, the main component is loaded. And Vardaman and Mikael Svensson has blogged about this if you want to have a look at it. So after the component is imported, we make a new class instance of it, and we inject the rows as list items, and then we use show. This is something of the base dialog. So here we have the multi-share dialog. This is quite small, and as I told you, this extends the base dialog from the SP dialog here. So we have both the show, and we have also this close. So in this multi-share dialog content React component, I just inject the list items, And as the close property, this close is from the base dialog. And I just made a small difference here. I exported multi-share dialog instead of exporting default class here, just to make it, make it more readable, I think. New component, multi-share dialog instead of new component default. That's the main difference. And let's go into the content here. Here we have a lot of stuff, a lot of imported components from React, a few things from the PnP JS SP package, sharing role, sharing email data, sharing results and stuff. And here we have the properties, the list items, and the close. So the close is just, close the parent. The interface is here. Let's go down here. The suggestion props here, they are from the localized strings here. So we put this into the people picker for various reasons. It's quite simple. And let's see here. We have a dialog content with a title. Everything is within strings. On this miss, we use the close. And just basic stuff here. If we don't have any share results, and if the state is loading, show a spinner. If we have a share result, show a message bar with the share result. This state share result text, and what type it is. Hopefully success. And I'm using a normal people picker. I haven't used the reusable component that's in the SPFx, but you could if you want to. And two main things here. On result suggestions, this unfiltered change. This is when you type in any letters and you search for a person. And on change, this is when you choose a person in the people picker. And I just added some additional stuff here. If we have any external users, show this thing here. Like is outside the organization. So if it's only one, he is outside the organization, or else it's another string R. A drop-down text field, checkbox, and a dialog footer with a primary button. And this is for sharing, and this is using PnPjs as well. And so we synchronously do this and use the share icons with people and put in a lot of stuff from the state. And it's disabled if the selected people in the people picker aren't more than 0. Basic stuff. So this on selection change, this is when you choose someone in the people picker. And I just made it simple now. If any of the items here contains an external user, and an external user is just person I've added the secondary text external to in this case. And then we set the state. If we have any external users here, put it in, or else it's null. And we put this boolean here if there's any. So then it's true and it's displaying the message bar. And on filter change here, I'm going to start with this else. If we don't have any users, then we use this get users, which uses PnPjs to get all the users. And then I use a function in the multi-share helper. It's a help class with a lot of functions to make this people list then. And then we just do setup filtered personas and return it. And if we have a people list already, just check if we have any filter text, any text edited or entered in the people picker, and then we return the filtered personas in the same way. Let's see, then let's go back to the UI. Hopefully this makes sense. So let's see then. A few things here. So I'm just going to show you what happens here. sorry, wrong window. It's like with the screens, but here it is, the windows instead. So just, I'm going to show you here. It's some email regex. Now I have an external user here, and we could just put in another one as well if we want to. Yeah, you see this changes. And then we remove it. And then I could just enter this one and enter the PnP user as well if you want to. And this is if you want to send an email invitation with some text. And I'm using simplified roles here. So let's share it. Hopefully you can see this. So now we're in the share items with people here. So we set the state to loading, and we get the user's login names and some other stuff here. Then we have sharing result, an array. So for each of the list items, I'm just checking what's up here. And, oh, sorry. Why didn't it want to? Okay. So I'm checking here in the switch case. I could just use an if or else, but whatever. I'm checking if what's the FS object type here. And if it's the case is 1, it's a folder. And then I'm using this get folders by server relative. Oh, it should be ERL, but it doesn't matter. And I made an assumption here that this is share everything in the folder. So I set that to true. And if the case is 0, I don't know what's up. If the case is 0, then it's a file. So now we should have a sharing result. So we pushed it here. And then I'm doing the same thing here. So then we're sharing items. And this is in the helper. We have a lot of functions here. And it's not the prettiest, but it works. So I'm setting up the sharing message bar here. And if we don't have any error messages, then just do this. So I'm looking for if we have any invited users in any of the sharing results. And then I just take out the individual emails down and make it unique. And the same thing here, if we have any uniquely permissioned users. So uniquely permissioned users is just people who it has been shared with. So let's just go with this, and here we have just a result. Successful sharing of items, PnP folder and PnP book. Invited, this is the external user. Share with, me and the PnP user, so it's using the display name. I think that's basically it. I'm not going to show you all of the helper functions in the multi-share helper here, but I hope you're familiar with the localization. I have a lot of strings here, and I have it in English, and since I'm Swedish, I'm biased, so Swedish as well. So I don't know other than this, if you have any questions. For else I'm done, I think.
Great stuff. Great stuff. I'm going to go back to the presentation. If folks have questions, you can ask them there in the IM window, and I'm sure we will be able to follow up. And we actually have a little bit of time here at the end of the call for some Q&A, but those were two fantastic demos. I want to thank Vipul and Simon both. Really cool stuff. It's great to see what folks are doing out there and to learn from what we're all doing for our customers and for our companies that we work for. So really exciting stuff. And if you'd like to do a demo, as I mentioned before, please just get in touch. We'd love to give you an opportunity to do your demos on this call. So please just let myself or Vesa know. And like I mentioned, Twitter is a great place to ping us on that. So for the next couple of minutes, we can do just an open Q&A. If folks can type there in the IM window, or
how did we have extra time? What is this? This is like first time in this year we have some extra time. What's happening? What's wrong with you? Hey.
I think you came back from vacation and you got fatigued early on your talking. You're a little out of shape. So you came back maybe, a couple pounds heavy from winter break. And
Autumn break. It's not yet
autumn
winter.
Break?
Yeah.
It's always winter in Finland.
Sure.
Except for that 1 week in June.
Oh, no, it's 2 days, so that's fine.
2 days.
Now there's a question from Dean. Recently needed to implement an equivalent to the Delph user callout, aka live persona card element. This is a callout that across the SharePoint ecosystem when we hover over click a user's name. Are there any plans to make it available for developers, or is it already available? So basically, and the React person directory SPFx example features directly down the live persona card. So the Delph stuff and the Delph card, there is no plans to provide a reusable controls on that as such. Now, we could provide, let's say, using the PMP SPFx controls, using a reusable kind of a persona card, where you can just, let's say, provide an account name and it will then resolve all of the needed information. But there is no plans to get the Delph implementation as such shared externally for external developers. We use, basically our model right now is mainly to, how would I put it, harvest out-of-the-box code and out-of-the-box capabilities and then get those controls and functionalities out using the PMP open source project. So as an example, the web part title control is a good example, or the placeholder control from the SPFx PMP React controls. Those are awesome examples which are basically coming from out-of-the-box controls, but they're released as a open source through the PMP. So we're looking into doing something similar for many of the other out-of-the-box experiences, but it takes a while to figure it out. Now, the reason somebody might be asking, why don't you actually expose the first-party controls? That's a design, or let's say a R&D decision. If we would share out-of-the-box controls, what out-of-the-box web parts are using as such, and that would mean that we would have to then start versioning them. We would then have to start thinking them as almost like an interface because external people are using them, which means that we can't just change them anymore based on the first-party experience, which then means that it will increase our development costs. So for now, the people in a much higher payroll has decided in the R&D, in our engineering, that we're not sharing first-party controls as open source controls in SharePoint. We use the PnP as the channel for sharing stuff out. Long answer on a good question, though.
And as well, if you want to work on developing something, it'd be a great contribution back to the reusable controls. So if you can come up with something that's generic, that's an absolutely awesome candidate to get rolled into that package for everybody in the community to be able to take advantage of. So.
Just from Can's comment, provide a clear support statement for SPFx with IE. IE 11 should be supported with SharePoint Framework. If it's not, then I think we have issues open in an issue list, which we need to have a look. So, and it's stated in the user voice entry that there are bad memory leaks. So IE 11 officially is supported in SharePoint Online as the browser, so we need to be able to support that in SPFx. Now, if there's issues, we need to also fix that. So thank you for reminding on that one. There was a good question from Velling related on when can we expect React 16 on SPFx. It's going to be part of the 1.7 potentially. I can't yet now promise that on a 100% case. And what it will be, because all of your existing web parts are using React 15. So if you're really into this web stack development, you might be wondering that, wait a minute, so do I need to recompile my existing code? And the answer is no. We will actually execute React 15 and 16 side by side on the pages automatically. So all of your existing stuff will work as such, but you can also upgrade your stuff to use React 16, and then you're able to start using that in your customization. And that will be basically there by default, I think actually already in 1.7. So, but the side-by-side, I've done testing side-by-side with SharePoint Starter Kit on an environment where we're running 15 and 16 side-by-side, and everything is working properly. So it's coming really soon. Is there any ability on SPFx to implement comments feature on for a list item? So Neela Magwal, you asked this earlier on the call as well. Sorry for didn't answer that one. So technically, you can absolutely implement that kind of thing. SPFx is a framework. It's a JavaScript framework for implementing customization. So SPFx itself doesn't actually have a comment feature, obviously, but you could absolutely create a custom comment feature for list items and then store those comments, for example, in a custom column in the list item. Now, if you would like to implement the mention capability there, it requires quite a lot of code. Obviously, it would require some code which is similar to what Simon showed today related on people picker, which will then resolve the people based on the name. So it won't be an easy thing to do, definitely. So technically, answer is yes, but it requires quite a lot of code and custom code to get implemented.
Also, potentially another great addition to the reusable controls library.
Yeah, yes. Patti is asking, why can't we have an external CDN assets deployment together? I don't quite understand the question. You can have absolutely external CDN to host your assets, or you can then choose to say SharePoint that, hey, SharePoint, host my asset automatically. So there is no need to use external CDNs in SharePoint framework development, because SharePoint will host your assets automatically regardless if the CDN setting is enabled or not. So that used to be the case. External CDN was needed at some point, but it's no longer needed starting from 1.4.1 version. So if the Office 365 CDN is enabled in a tenant, we will use that automatically. If it's not enabled, we'll still host all of the assets for you and update the URLs and everything automatically. So sure, if you choose for whatever reasons you still say, no, I want to use an external CDN, you can still do that, but that's definitely not recommended. Whoa, Praveen has an interesting issue. Let's see. Quickly jumping on the 1779, and let's see where we are with this one. We're still kind of catching up after Ignite on a lot of the issues. This is being tracked. And
clearly the solution there is to add code to auto scroll the page 20 pixels.
Come on, Patrick. I don't think that should be the case anymore. I think we've fixed this one. Now, the fact that it's open, I need to go back on our DevOps tracking to see that is this actually truly fixed or not. So that should be already closed. Any plans to improve the external references in the SPFx soon? External references in SPFx soon. Vincent, you need to give more context on what you mean for improving on that. And thanks, Ralph, for the suggestion. And obviously, so let's put it this way: we're starting to run out of time. So. Getting external stuff more easily downloaded and referenced, absolutely. If there's suggestions which we should improve something, answer is absolutely very interested on making that as easy as possible. Now, if you want to use, for example, Office UI Fabric, that is a challenge because we load one version of Office UI Fabric on the native SharePoint page. So we can't really give you access on that one because that's going to be versioned separately based on your web part, and that's then one of the reasons why referencing external, you are forced to reference Office UI Fabric externally, and we can't really fix that because there's an overlapping of things.
I'm going to cut it off because we are at the top of the hour. Great questions from everybody. Really appreciate the feedback. Our next SPFx JS meeting is going to be November 8th for this call. And next Thursday, we're back on track with the general SharePoint Development Special Interest Group on November 1st. So that'll be next Thursday. Look forward to seeing everybody on both of those calls. So thank you, everybody, for joining the call. Thank you for being part of the community. Look forward to talking to everybody soon. Have a great rest of your week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.